While my screen share is getting pulled up, I just wanted to kind of start my talk today talking about vacation, because we all love vacation, right? And hopefully everybody here at one time or another has been able to plan a vacation. So that's the reason I want to talk about that, is it actually ties into strategy for organizations, which I'll get to in a minute. But the last time I planned a vacation was just about a year ago, and believe it or not, we all do strategic planning when we're planning a vacation. We look at things and talk about with our family or whoever's going with what we want to accomplish, like what are our core values for the vacation, and then or vacationing in general, I should say. What do we like in vacationing? Because it's different for different people. Some people want to relax, and some people want to do things or experience things. Other people just enjoy beauty or the actual journey, the traveling itself. So whatever that is for you, you know that, and you probably haven't even talked about it much, or maybe if you do, it's just conversational with your family. But then from there, you actually decide, okay, we're going to take a vacation. So the first question usually is, well, where do we want to go? That also depends on what you value in a vacation, because you're not going to go somewhere that doesn't support those values. And likewise, you can't always go and support all of those values in one given vacation. So you might have to pick and choose. And so your particular vacation probably has a purpose. So when your kids are little, and even though as adults you might really enjoy relaxation and unwinding, if you've got little kids, they're probably going to get pretty bored if you go sit on a beach for a week. It might be okay for the first day or hour, but after that, they're going to want stuff to do. So you might value other things at different times in your life, and then have to adjust accordingly. But your purpose for the vacation is, okay, well, what do we want to accomplish this time? And so that might be Disney, or that might be, our purpose is really excitement and enjoyment and things to do with our family. Or maybe it is, we want to just sit on a beach and read books. Whatever the purpose is for this vacation, you have that in mind when you start planning your destination. And so that inevitably leads to a destination. And when you're planning a vacation, most of this stuff happens conversationally, and it's not really a structured plan, because face it, vacationing is fun. And so you don't really want to think too much about the planning. You want to get on with the enjoyment. But organizing a company and planning and strategic planning for your organization is very similar in process. And so that's what I'm talking about today, is what I call organizational navigation. And so I talked about the vacation. We've got values, purpose, we've got a destination. Then of course there's logistics and arrival and all of those things involved. But when we get to navigation, as I define it, is strategy plus execution. So I don't actually do strategic planning by itself. I actually want to help companies develop their plan and then execute it. And I call that navigation. So strategic planning, according to Wikipedia, is an organization's process of defining its strategy or direction and making decisions on allocating its resources to pursue this strategy. So a lot of times, though, when it comes to organizations, whether that's companies or not-for-profits, they stop at the first part. They call strategic planning developing that plan. So that would be mission and vision and values and all those things that we're used to hearing. But they stop there, and they create some document that hangs on a wall and collects dust. So why is this process important to begin with? Well, I've kind of adopted a nautical theme in my coaching. And so I talk a lot about ships and destinations in terms of a voyage. But the reason this is important to do this strategic planning plus execution process is because otherwise you're sailing the ocean blue and basically wandering around aimlessly. You might have some idea of where you want to go in your head, but if you haven't plan that out, you're probably never going to get there. And if you haven't enrolled other people in that plan to help you achieve that plan, you're probably not going to get there. And so I feel it is vitally important that every organization goes through some system or process to develop their strategy and a plan to execute and get there. So I begin with the end. This is one of Stephen Covey's principles. He talks in his second habit about beginning with the end in mind. But it's really not the end. When I'm working with a client, I'm really working towards an end point. So I don't use the traditional terminology that you'll find. I mean, I use it, but I don't structure my process around things like core values and missions and visions, because I've found over the last 13 years as I developed this process that everyone kind of has their own definitions for what those are. And rather than have people relearn and redefine terms, I found it was actually easier just to create my own terminology and explain what it is and define it within the system so that it's effective. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, but it's really an end point. So really what we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. So T.S. Eliot, it's a good quote. This is cyclical, and every end point, every what I would call ideal destination is just one point along your journey, but it's a big one. So my book, which is called iNautilus Guide for Organizational Navigation, actually details this whole process. It's available on my website and on Amazon. But I'm going to give a high-level overview of the process right here today. The process is called iNautilus, and I'm not going to go into all the history, but over the years, I've retooled it and redefined things to fit into this format. And the idea here is that with a nautilus, that shape, the spiral, the center is, although it's progressive and you're moving inward towards the center and outward from the center, everything's still touching the center. That's key to this whole philosophy and this whole methodology. But if you notice, there is on the outside there a big red dot. It's called the big red dot. And there's a reason for that. It is the starting point on the map that you are here. And a lot of organizations skip this step when it comes to planning. Identifying where you are right now is absolutely crucial. So think about it. If you and your family were kidnapped, God forbid that ever happens, but if they were, and blindfolded and driven for an unknown period of time out into the middle of nowhere and dropped you off on a cloudy day and said, find your way back home, every single step you take is more likely leading you away from home than back towards it, just statistically speaking. So it is extremely important that we identify our starting point and clearly state what that is. So I help clients do that with the big red dot. So before you can identify your destination and a route to get there, you've got to know where you're starting from. So some guiding questions along that journey is, what do we do now? What do we do as an organization? What is our reach? Who is our audience? What are our stats? So whatever is important to you in your particular industry, revenue, profits, customer base, and where are we right now? Status, standing, situation. So just some of these are the same question, just asked a different way because it'll elicit a different response. So these are the types of questions to help you identify where you are right now. And from that point, you can begin looking at where you want to go. So the next step in the process is the ICOMP, which stands for Integrity Compass. And the integrity compass is comprised of 4 to 8 cardinal directives. So they steer the strategic process. They identify what the organization views as important, non-negotiable truth. They're key indicators. They're the foundation for everything else you're going to do. And so it looks like this. So these would be the equivalent in the strategic planning world of core values, but I call them cardinal directives, and this is your integrity compass. Actually, this is my integrity compass, not yours. So I've actually showed you what my cardinal directives are for Greenfire Innovations. And when you're doing this process, I find it extremely helpful to add a descriptive word. Integrity is kind of blasé, overused word. But when you throw a word like consistent in front of it, it adds another dimension. City of Valparaiso has several. This is where I actually learned this from John Costa's doing. He talks about the core values of Valparaiso when he was the mayor, and so he one of his was creative frugality. Like frugality by itself, it's kind of cold, kind of like almost a negative connotation. But when you throw creative frugality, the word creative in front of it, it totally changes the connotation of the word. Another one, surprising responsiveness. That, I mean, through responsiveness, okay, you kind of expect that from an organization, right? If that isn't something they value, it's kind of like, whatever. But surprising responsiveness, live up to that. That is an amazing accomplishment if you can do so, and it just changes the dynamic. So those are really important. And that leads us to the IMAP. So the IMAP is the identity map, which identifies the purpose for existence. Now, every company exists to make money, right? That's not your purpose. Every organization, not-for-profit, exists, charity exists to help people in some way or another. That's not your purpose. A church exists to disciple people or to glorify God, whatever that's not their purpose, because just down the road, there's another church or there's another not-for-profit or another company doing the same thing. That doesn't define why your organization exists. You need to come up with why your organization exists specifically. And so this is going to help filter decision-making and change. It's going to demand and enable an IDEST, which we'll talk about next, and I-points, that's ideal destination, and I-points. It should almost never change. Your purpose for existence should be pretty constant over the course of the organization. And it should be supported by all actions and activities of the organization. So I talk in what I do, I don't do a mission statement, I do a legend statement. And a legend statement is a living document that actually encompasses both the ICOMP and the IMAP. So all of your cardinal directives or core values and the purpose of the organization is all put into one. A lot of times that happens anyway, but I make sure that they're clearly defined. So then we get into the ideal destination. This is kind of the crux of the whole thing. This is really, really crucial because it's dealing with where you want to go. So it defines the future and it's purpose-driven. It sets direction and demands action. It's organizational lighthouse. And so the document, it's an image of the future, and it has a beginning and an end. So this is the big picture where you want to go. It's a detailed description of what your company or organization looks like in 5 to 10 years. And it grows out of the ICOMP and the IMAP. So it should be an almost organic process. So you can relate the vision of the should be. And the last thing on there is I'm kind of jumping ahead because there's a lot of information here and I don't want to take up too much time. So a lighthouse statement is what I use to detail a ideal destination for an organization. So that's the process of the first half of the iNautilus. And then it goes into I-points, which are indicator points. You might call these goals, but they're big goals. They're the things the big increments that lead you to your ideal destination. So they're markers along the way. And each one is a milestone. We've all heard about SMART goals, right? Those have been around for 40 plus years. I've always felt that SMART goals were a little bit lacking. So I would have like 3 S's in the SMART goals and a couple M's and a couple T's. Like I had multiple words because I didn't feel like one word really encapsulated everything. So I actually retooled this to milestones where I-points, which are goals, need to be measurable, integrated with your core values or your IMAP and your ICOMP, legitimate, so legal and ethical, elevating, they need to be significant upward movement, not just a baby step, but a significant movement upward steps. They need to be simple. If they're overcomplicated, people can't follow them. Temporal, bound by time. Optimistic. So similar to elevating, except optimistic is about polarity. And the example I always give here is you don't want to talk about reducing customer attrition. You want to talk about improving customer retention. It's the same thing, but it shifts your mindset into a positive rather than a negative mode. Navigable means it's possible, it's realistic. It's not so difficult to achieve that it's demoralizing. And encompassing, meaning it's actually encompassing all phases. So one eye point isn't going to be encompassing, but all taken together, they should encompass your entire voyage from big red dot to ideal destination. And specific, opposite of simple, balancing those two, it needs to be specific enough that you know when you got there. So I always recommend that you put your eye points or goals in present tense. It is now some future date, and we are, or we have achieved, or we have done this. And there's reasons for that from neurolinguistic programming perspective and from goal setting perspective, that it's best to talk in terms of future date. It creates cognitive dissonance, and that's a good thing if it's working for you. Verify that your eye points are milestones, and that gets us to the eye routes, which are incremental routes. Steps necessary to accomplish each eye point. The whole purpose of this entire process is breaking it down from where your big ideal destination is into daily activity, which is where we're going next. But everything is just smaller and smaller pieces until we're able to look at what we need to do today. So the eye routes are the incremental routes, steps necessary to get to each eye point along the way. So methods, plans of action, who's going to handle these things, how it all ties together, timelines, all of that is part of the eye routes. And finally, eye tasks. So these are your immediate tasks, and they are the daily actions of the organization. So it's everything you do from day to day. I talk about propellers. Propellers are your big rocks. Again, coming back to Stephen Covey's stuff. So what am I going to do today that is going to move me towards my ideal destination? I think everybody needs to focus and actually schedule time on their calendar to do this. And so whatever that propeller is for you today, you need to spend a couple hours on it at least. I know we all have things to do, but if you're not moving yourself towards your ideal destination, then you're probably doing the wrong things. So tying it all together, and this is where the magic of the iNautilus comes into play. Your iComp grows an IMAP, which demands an IDEST, ideal destination, which charters your eye points, which determine your eye routes, which in turn define your immediate tasks. And your immediate tasks accomplish your eye routes, your incremental routes, which complete your indicator points, which realizes the ideal destination, fulfilling your identity map and integrating with your integrity compass. But it doesn't stop there, because your iComp also guides your daily activity, your immediate tasks. And your IMAP, your identity map, filters all of those tasks. Your ideal destination directs those tasks. Your eye points frame them, and then in turn, your eye tasks reinforce your goals, which progress the ideal destination and supports the IMAP, and in turn exemplifies your iComp or cardinal directives. So that is the integrated Nautilus, hence iNautilus. And that's what it's all about, is helping organizations get from the big red dot to their ideal destination. So I'm going to stop there because there's a lot more I could go into. And this is, again, just a high level overview. I'm going to skip to the end so that my my slide with, well, maybe I am, we'll see. Okay. I can't find the screen. Nope. All right, anyway, I'll throw my contact information up there when I can. If there are any questions, feel free.
If anyone has questions for Eric, this would be a great time to ask them.
Hey, Eric, Chester Johnson here.
Yeah, Chester.
Did I miss it? Is your background has always been strategy? Or no, you said you were in sales before, correct?
Yeah, I do sales training as well, yes.
Oh, okay, awesome. Did you do corporate strategy in your previous life?
No, not to this degree.
Okay.
I mean, I've run my own companies multiple times, and
Okay.
this is I helped develop a training course for leaders way back in 2013. That's kind of what spawned all of this. Is as I'm looking through all of the materials on strategic planning, I wasn't finding anything that tied it all together in such a way that was visual, progressive, functional. And so I had a moment of inspiration with the Nautilus shape, and over the last 13 years, I developed it out into a complete system to help organizations use it. So no, I don't have background in it, but there's nothing, I would say, it's innovative in that it packages strategic planning and execution into a reproducible process and system, but the concepts are not new.
Yeah. I know with limited time, we couldn't really talk
Sure.
too much about execution, but do you have any like key points to make? Because I think, to your point, it's the very important part of making sure you don't have a plan that's getting dusty.
Yep. No, you're right. And part of that is keeping it in front of you. That's the benefit of something visual. But when you get into those iTasks, I kind of breezed over the concept of propellers. Those are key iTasks that are moving you from where you are now to the next I point, right? So the next goal. And so focusing every single day on one propeller, one task that's moving you significantly towards your next goal. Because obviously as many people talk about multitasking, we're really not very good at it. I personally believe that even the people who are really good at multitasking are just really not giving anything their full effort. So I suggest taking minimum of 2 hours and focusing on something that is progressing you towards your next goal, and do that every day. So if there's one tip, that's it.
Very nice. Very nice.
So Eric, how do you help do you work with smaller companies that only have a couple employees?
Yep. Yeah. My focus is small and medium-sized organizations. I do, I don't want to scare anybody, but my normal regular fees are, I do $2,000 a month coaching with organizations for a 6-month program. However, if you like what you're hearing, then please don't let the money scare you away. And the reason I say that is because I genuinely view myself as a B2B missionary. And so with companies that are smaller like that, or that simply say, oh, we would love to hire you, but there's just no way we can do that, then what I do is say, okay, fine, pay me what you can or what you think it's worth, or pay me over time, or I don't worry about the money. I will let them, obviously I work with people that I can trust, and that I will, not just everybody can do that, but if they're, an integrity driven company, then I would have no problem doing that. So that's what I've been doing with several clients lately, because obviously right now it's kind of hard for people. So,
so your specialty is sort of highlighting the different concepts and making them a little bit more executionable.
Yes, it's about, most of what I'm doing is about clarity. So in order to not be the ship that's wandering aimlessly about the ocean, you need to know where you are. So that's, if you're a boat in the middle of the ocean, that's using the stars, using the sun, figuring out where am I right now? And then, okay, where do I really want to go? Most organizations, whether it's a business or not-for-profit, are an extension of the purpose and values of the owner. And so a lot of what I'm doing is extracting those things from the owner, because most owners know what they value and they know what their intended purpose is for their organization, but that doesn't mean that they've fleshed it out to a point where they can communicate it with others. And if your organization, your employees or volunteers don't know where you're going, then you're not going to get as much effective help from them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I found your presentation very, very interesting. I used to be in corporate for about 8 years in aerospace, so I
Nice.
pretty much lived how do you get the strategic plan down to the shop floor every day. And I think that it's very helpful to kind of show that to people, even with a small business, because it doesn't matter how big your business is. You really have to have a plan. I've noticed no one succeeds without a plan. I've been to multiple companies, and the less they have a plan, the worse it gets.
Well, and so many organizations, and I love churches. I love working with churches. So I'm not picking on them necessarily, but they just do what they do, right? And companies do the same thing. It's like, oh well, we just make food. Okay, but And maybe that's all. Maybe that's all. Maybe that's good enough for the owner. But a lot of people really have a higher calling than that, a higher purpose, something that they really want to be about in their life. And their business is their biggest vehicle to make that happen, whatever it is. So, whether that's, having an impact on world hunger or having an impact on whatever is that you as an owner are passionate about, then how can we turn your business into something that's making that goal, that vision, a reality?
I mean, even I don't do this with my current small company, but every company I was at, you were daily going through all the goals and seeing what happened in the delta of 24 hours, what happened. And in that 24 hours, were goals met? Are we on track? And it helps to align everyone to making money, which I find the best part of goal tracking. But yeah, a good presentation. It was good.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to skip a lot because I realized it was taking longer than I wanted it to. But I mean, I was giving you guys it's the same presentation I use with clients. It was just pared down a lot. But I actually walk organizations through this entire process, and so it's working with them and crafting their statements. Obviously, I'm not going to do that for them, but I come alongside them and I help them and make sure that it's clear and that somebody else looking at it is going to understand what it means and can get on board with it. And then when we get into the activity and the goals and all that kind of stuff, it's how delegating and creating plans for them to execute and worksheets and stuff. So there's a lot of hands-on stuff. Obviously, you're welcome to go get the book too, and it will detail this to some degree. And there are worksheets in the back of the book and free resources on the website. But to really maximize this, it really is valuable to have somebody walking you through it. And sorry, I've got multiple screens. That's why I'm looking up over to the, because I'm looking at you guys, but you're just not in front of my camera. So
Is there like nine screens and we're on each one like the Brady Bunch? Or
I've got 4 in front of me at the moment. So
yeah, I do that too. So I'm looking like I still see you.
Yeah.
And just last thing I want to mention, since we're just kind of winding down here, I am hosting a convoy, the I Know Us Convoy 2020 right now. It is a free seminar for business owners, organizational leaders. It is, you can go to convoy.iknowus.net and it's on the screen too, but it's free to register, free to attend. Today was day 4 of 6. So we've got Wednesday and Friday coming up. It's at 7 a.m. Central Time. So that'd be 8 o'clock for all you indie people. It goes for 1 hour, except for the last day will be 1.5 hours. And if you register, you can catch the replays on Facebook Live in the Facebook Live group. So you're able to go back and watch all of the speakers that have presented so far. I'm actually gonna be talking on Wednesday. I'm gonna be doing what I did here, just in a little bit more detail, because I've got 45 minutes instead of 20, so.
Eric, we don't see that address up on the screen. We just see Greenfire.
Did I stop? Oh, that's because I didn't do this. There we go. That's what I meant to do about 5 minutes ago.
Better.
Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thanks guys. I appreciate it. It's fun I love doing this kind of stuff, and I love talking navigation, and yeah, it's fun for me.
Awesome. Well, let's give Eric a hand for his presentation today.
Thanks.